Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 7/6/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 129. And today, I completed the Working with APIs module, and I'm 45% complete with the JavaScript series, if you will, section. And there is an inline exercise here. Working with an API, a Giphy, and for those who are following along in coding, can't talk today. You are aware and Sorry, my Truts is very active today. You're working right along with me, and so you understand the work that's going to be done here. So I want to spend a lot of time and go over the actual exercise. So actually I'm going to just skip down here because a lot of this is the inline exercise, and so I figured instead of just reading through this text with you guys, I'll just explain my code, and a lot of that will be answering the follow along, because some of the stuff like here is a follow along code on your own type situation anyway, so that's already going to be in my code. So I figure that's kind of how I'll structure it. This probably will be a longer video, I will tell you that. Maybe my luck, since I said that, it'll actually be short. Who's kidding? But anyway, let's get to the knowledge check here. So I'm just going to breeze through these real quick. Obviously, it's not inclusive, and highly encourage you to read through this on your own. What is an API? An API stands for Application Programming Interface, and essentially, boil it down, what it is just basically a web URL that gives you a mechanism for communicating with other programs on the web. So like your web app can in our examples, in the way our context, your web app can communicate and fetch and receive and send data to another program on the internet via an API. And access to the API is restricted by what they call an API key, and there's a lot more detail that can go into that. Excuse me. But for the purposes of this video, I just want to let you know that the API is restricted by a key, and there's paid and there's free open source APIs, and even the open source, what I've come across in my small amount of research I've done and understanding, is that almost all APIs require you to sign up, even the free ones, to get a free account. Excuse me, in order to register yourself to get a key. Excuse me, to get an API key. So that way it can track, and so if there's any API abuse, they can track it back to your account and shut you down if necessary. So that's how they're restricted, is by API key. So without an API key, hence without signing up with the API feed, you won't be able to use the API because it won't know who you are. The API key is used to identify you uniquely. How do you fetch and extract data from an API? So this goes into the text here. This is kind of, I won't go through this, but this is the old way of doing it. Thankful to Lord Jesus Christ that we don't have to do this anymore this way, because this is, as they just said, just getting XHR is a mess, and this is all just a fetch function basically, and all that can be dwindled down to this, which is awesome. So basically, this is what your block of logic looks like. So you have, excuse me, I'm on the struggle bus tonight. So you have a fetch with a URL, and then you have a then in this example, and this is so the fetch is going to fetch your API and then bring it back as a promise, and then you're going to run a function against the response of that promise and then do something with it, and then otherwise you're going to do a catch if there's an error, and you're going to report out error, do something with the error. So there's a lot more to it than that too, but that's essentially the nuts and bolts of a API or a fetch call using a promise. And that just goes and talks about it. And then I think the last question actually was about cores. I call it cores. I don't know. Yeah. Um, how might your API request be blocked by the browser, and how might you fix this? So it's basically cores. Cores stands for cross-origin resource sharing, and by default, most browsers, or all browsers, by default is restricted. It restricts HTTP requests to outside sources, which meaning if it doesn't exist inside your domain, you're not going to get it. Cores will restrict you, and you'll get a cores error message in your console log, in your DevTools console dashboard. There is a work around that, and all you do is when you call your fetch and you call your API URL, you just tack on mode cores at the end of it, and I'll show you that in my code here in the inline project. So when you do this, this actually it allows the supply of the JavaScript object for options, and it comes right after the URL as a second parameter of the fetch, and so adding it, actually I added it, technically I added it this way, not in this format, but essentially the same thing. It's just tabbed out. We'll solve the problem for now. In the future, however, you may want to look into the implications of this restriction. So basically, cores allows you to do cross-origin resource sharing. So basically, your API will be able to or their API and your API will be able to communicate back and forth across the network, across domains. So www.google.com could talk to you at, mywebsite.com if you had mode cores. And there's other modes too, and I won't get into all that, but so that answers that essentially basic question. Okay. So let's get into the inline exercise. So I start out here with the so this is they tell you to basically make a local file, and so we're doing a Giphy API fetch is what I called it for a folder, Giphy API fetching, and then it says to create an index.html, and as you can see already, this is all in one. I don't like this, but it's just the whole point of the exercise. It's not a GitHub or anything. The whole point of the local exercise is just to get used to working with APIs and get you an introduction to working with APIs and how to fetch the data and create an account, create your key, and some of you students here or developers will already notice that I am exposing my API keys. So by the time you're seeing this video, I will have already cycled through my API keys, so this one will be worthless, so you won't be able to use it, and accidentally or unfortunately some people maliciously try to abuse my API key and get my account suspended. So so I'm going to show you my API key. In the real world, we learn in the text you do not want to expose your API key or secret key to anyone because it gives them unfettered access to your account via the API, your account on that endpoint, that end node. So it's not a good idea to, we just haven't learned yet how to do that. In a later lesson, we'll learn how to properly hide our API keys in JavaScript. So here is the all-in-one index.html. So here's the body. We start with a blank image tag with blank source tag, and you'll see why here in a little bit. I'm going to do this in sections and show you in the browser. I feel like that might be a little easier to follow along with. So I have two, just to make things look a little nicer, I have two BR tags, which line break tags, just to get spacing in between. Again, I didn't put any, I did that because there's no CSS, as you can see on here. I just wanted to complete the project and complete the goal of successfully fetching it from an API. So, and then I have a button class, and the class isn't really relevant, but it's called get new cat Giphy, and it's a button that when pressed will get a new cat, will do a fetch to a new cat photo or GIF, excuse me. And then there's a label here for search, input text ID search, class search, placeholder search. This is a search box that allows you to search the API for any other type of photo you want to look up that's not a cat. Or you could do more cats. And then we have a button class search button that's called search. That does the search action for the input. And then there's a reset button here to clear, called clear, that clears the text that may be in the field. So here's our script tags. Here's our JavaScript right down here. And we have a section here for DOM for images, buttons, and search elements. So you have an image, a cat Giphy, a search button, and a clear button that all query select off of the appropriate query selectors, off of the appropriate classes and IDs up here. Well, all these are IMG here is the IMG tag here. So query selecting the tag, and then these three are the selecting the classes and getting them ready to use. And then we're going to call a fetch function on window load. So if you've been on some of my other videos, on projects, you've noticed I've used this before. It's window.onload. So at window.onload, we're going to invoke fetch new cat Giphy, and what that does is come down here. And again, this isn't solid either. These aren't solid principles. Again, this is not. It's a local project on my machine. It's not on GitHub. It's just the point of fetching from an API. So just overlook the lack of solid principles and and the fact that it's not modulated either. So we have fetch here, so it's going out to the api.giphy.com, and then we're using the translate endpoint, and then a question mark, and then the API key. Again, this is going to be thrown away by the time you're seeing this, so you will not be able to abuse my key. I'm not trying to be vindictive or vicious here with my comments. It's just that my thought process originally when I was going to make this video is I was researching how to obfuscate, basically how to blur out my keys, but it quickly became overwhelming to the point where it was going to take me too long to create the video. And as you guys know, I'm about writing code, and I'm about learning how to code, not making elegant videos. So I decided that I made sure that I was able to throw away the key to get a new key, and I am on the dashboard on the back end of Giphy. So I am just going to do that and make that simple. So here's the key, and then you have at or ampersand s at the end, and that calls the search query, and then equals will be your search query start, and then we're going to look up cats, C-A-T-S. And then here's that mode cores that we talked about briefly in the text. And then what it does then is it sends a promise through a then. So we get the promise back through the fetch, and then we're going to run the response and return the response.json. As we learned in the text, we're going to convert it to JSON, because when it comes over, it's just text, a wall of basically JSON styled text, but it's not JSON file, so this makes it a JSON file. And then after that, we're going to run through the function again for response, and img.src is going to be the source of the image tag, so we're going to set that to the value of response.data.images.original.url, and that URL content is going to be the source. So how I got that is through this. So this is the wall of data. This is the JSON. This is what if you run your query and you copy and paste it into the browser, this is what you'll get. So how I got that is I went through data, images, and I think it's data images, original, URL, and there's your URL. So if I were to click this, it would just bring up the that dog in that example. That's a dog photo, obviously, or dog Giphy. So, but this is the URL that it's going to target. So just keep that in mind. So the URL, the original, is going to be is what's going to be tagged and encased here, and this is going to take on that source property, and so that's what pops up on the screen. And then we have a catch here. we want to catch any errors. So if an error comes through, we're going to console log something has went wrong when fetching cats, and then we're going to display the error message if there is one. And so I'm not going to go over the rest of it just yet because I want to show you in just some pieces how this part works. So we skip over here. So on the reload, you see on the reload it's loading, and you can see down here I put the console up so you can see the gets. It's going out and fetching cats using the cats keyword, and I'm refreshing it so it's doing the onload at random cats, so it's pulling up random images, whatever the first hit of is cats is what it's giving me. And then the button here is that function call again. It's just instead of onload, it's inside of a button click. I don't think I covered that. Yeah, so right here I just kind of skipped over it, but the cat Giphy.add event lister, so there's a click event, and it's going to do the same thing, fetch new cat Giphy. That'll run this fetch that we just talked about. So if you do that, it does the same thing. See, there it goes. There's the cats. It's just not refreshing the screen. So you'll see it appends here. There's cats. There's a new cat Giphy. There's another one. And so that's what that does. And then we go down here and have search button. We're going to have a click event for the search button, which is this right here. And we're going to run a slightly different, this is how I kind of wanted to separate it. It's slightly different function call. So this calls fetch search Giphy, and there's a little bit of logic in here. So in order for this to work, you have to be able to, dog, type something in there. So what it does is dog becomes search term, which is document.getElement by ID search.value. So as we've learned before, the .value targets the content inside. So the .dog gets applied to search term. If search term is equal to empty parens, empty string, search term will equal random, and that's important because that is one of the requirements in the text. And what we were doing down here at the end was add a default image or an error message if the search fails. So that's going to give it a random. So if you use the keyword random in this particular API through researching reading the Giphy documentation, this will give you a random image. So if there's no search term in there, we'll just do it with no search term. There's no search term. It will pull up a random GIF. So there it is. There's your random, and it's some weird dude with some weird hair. So if you have something in there, it will be applied to search term. Excuse me. Apparently, I'm going through puberty as well. You'll have fetch, and then you do a fetch, and then we're going to run that same translate endpoint. You can run search if you want. I just chose to use kept using the same endpoint, and then we're going to add the search term in there. So what you do is this makes it look really weird when you have prettier on, but really what you do is you put your API key in there, you do the ampersand s equals, end the parentheses, and then space plus search term, and then search term is obviously the text of whatever you put in there, and you still make sure you tell it cores, otherwise you'll get a cores error if you don't tell it mode cores, because we're cross-domained here. And then we have a then on the promise that returns the response.json like before, and then we have another then that does the same thing as before. We have image source response.data.images.original.url, and then we have a catch here just as a text required. We're going to catch any errors, and we're going to console out log. You've entered a search term that fetched no Giphy, try again, and then report out the error. And then in here, there's a click event for a clear button. So obviously, just as we've done before, nothing new here. Runs a local function called clear search, and then that just resets the value to an empty string inside of that box, which that's what this does here. So if you have a bunch of stuff in here, clear it. There you go. So if I do the search again, it's going to hit up another random. So there's a an even stranger, odd one, and then I'm probably gonna get a little risque with this one. Let's look up poop. Search for poop, and we get poop. Yeah. So we'll go off that. Anyway, so that is what that's doing. Uh, so all the gets are being shown here in the console. I'm not actually doing that. That's just the console log. Must be the fetch. The fetch API must just be doing that automatically because it did not tell the code to do that. So, and then, the other thing I didn't show you, if you type in something completely invalid or something that does not reach a value for in Giphy, just to show you that this logic works, we're gonna throw the X. It's gonna check via XHR. It's gonna see there's nothing there. It's gonna say you have entered a search term that fetched no Giphy. Try again. And then we're throwing the error type error response.data.images undefined. So that just tells the user, I mean, in console.log anyway. I mean, you could get more creative with that and do an alert pop up or whatever, but just for the requirements of this exercise, this is all we needed to do. So, and they're clear on that. Clears it and refresh. So I will say one more thing. I did have the original form right here was actually it's you see the spacing still in here. It was encased inside a form element, but I ran into a problem where the that's strange. Site, you never know what you're getting on this site. Where the form was resetting itself, and it was actually, I think it's just the default behavior of a form when you submit it. So this was a form, but it would refresh the entire page, so I'd lose all of the, console log or all the log work here, and it wasn't really behaving correctly. On window.onload was not firing, so when I refreshed, it wouldn't give me a photo, just give me a error, a place marker for a photo, for an image. So yeah, so once I just by coincidence took the form element off the HTML, it worked just fine. So just food for thought or word for the wise. So I knew this video was going to go a little longer than I wanted to, but again, I wanted to show you guys how this works and how to explore the JSON file of the API return like that, and how to get that URL if you're having a little bit of trouble. Again, it's under data, images, original URL for this particular exercise. And again, this is pretty well documented in Giphy's API documentation for their developers backend. It seemed like it could be a little bit more detailed. I had to do a little bit of Google searching myself on some of it, as you guys may have as well. But anyway, that's it. So lessons completed. So next time we go into the async and await. So thanks for coming along the journey with me tonight and hanging out with me. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments section what you guys think of this little inline project and working with fetching our first API call. So with all that said, till next time, see ya.